All right. Just as a corollary question to that, as I went through the Old Testament for the first time and read all the way through it, one of the things that surprised me was that, contrary to what I had thought that God mainly got mad at the Israelites for idolatry. That when I read through it, though, I realized that almost the same amount, maybe even more, of what he's actually angry at the Israelites is for the fact that they weren't taking care of their widows, that they were not taking care of the poor, that they weren't, kind to the foreigners in the land. The phrase, or the common comparison of, as you were with the Egyptians, remember that. It surprised me, and so what I'm wondering is those rebukes that we find in the narrative of Israel, as well as all throughout the minor prophets, extremely harsh rebukes. Are they still valid for the church today? Is it valid to take those and apply them to the church, or is that something that's a once-off, just historically contextualized, for the Israelites?
It's certainly not just a once-off thing. There's a couple of differences.
Okay.
Israel was God's covenant community. The church is God's covenant community. America's not. Now, when we're dealing with a lot of social justice, we deal with it at a political level. And so there's a way in which we're going to have to be wise as servants, working with people that really don't, political parties that don't have any real basis in Christian conviction, in order to promote what really is just and what really is justice. Again, I've addressed this partially before. Prosperity was one of the covenant blessings. Now, you can argue that it was material blessings are the blessing of the old covenant, and persecutions are the blessing of the new covenant. But it was not part of God's plan for Israel to starve to death. That was a consequence of their unfaithfulness. But when society violated shalom, when society violated God's peace by pretending that the wealth really was from them, therefore it was theirs, and they do what they want to with it, and having crooked weights and measures, not caring for the poor, it's addressed in the New Testament as idolatry. That's greed. It is idolatry. It's worshiping a false god. In Old Testament terms, it's putting your faith in vanity, committing yourself to vanity, because it's emptiness. It's what Jesus exposed with the rich man. You built all these barns. You're happy eating, drinking, and being merry. You're going to die. And who's going to have all of it? Well, not you. The commands of social justice, I think, speak to what God's heart is. That's not constrained within the bounds of Torah. That's not constrained within the bounds of an old covenant that, frankly, has been replaced by a new covenant. Because it's the same God, and I think it reveals the heart of His desire for how we live in this world.
Okay. In that, then, how would the current contemporary church, how should we read those rebukes? How should we take those and apply them? I guess more specifically.
Well, look at your checkbook. What do you spend your money on? Look at how you volunteer your time. Look at how you vote and what the parties you're involved with really are supporting. If you do that very much in America right now, you're going to get pretty depressed. But I was at an NT Wright conference this last 2 weekends ago, and writes a bishop, which in England, which means he's part of the House of Lords. And one of the things that he consistently speaks about in the House of Lords is third world debt relief. And when there was a financial crisis and all the bailouts going on, something that he pointed out was that, listen, we've got a bunch of rich people, you, who are about to do for the very rich what you keep telling me is impossible to do for the very poor. And that's simply ridiculous. And it simply shows the injustice of yourself and of this situation. And so, as a Christian, he's speaking out as a prophetic voice, I would say, pointing out this is wrong, and pointing out, okay, here's concrete ways where we actually can make a difference in this world that are not impossible. They're not up in heaven. They're not requiring, okay, every corrupt dictator in the world goes out of business. It's stuff you actually can do. You just have to choose to make some sacrifice for the common good.